Thanks, Jim. I'm Anton van Steenwijk, born and raised in the Netherlands. My last name doesn't cause any problem there, but here it does. So I'm the procurement director in the global fulfillment and logistics team at Dell. We're responsible to supply all the products to the customers around the world. Most of you are quite familiar with Dell. I hope many of you came with laptops packing. Just some numbers with regards to the Dell company. We have about 57 billion in revenue, some solid cash flow. What some of you might not know is that about a third of all the servers that are shipped to data centers in North America are from Dell. So we have a very significant market share in servers, networking, and data center solutions. And that is a little new. That we've grown that organically from the products that you see here at the top. The ones you're mostly familiar with, probably the desktop laptops, software and peripherals like monitors. Grown that into servers and storage, but continued that as well in the last couple of years into a complete end-to-end solution. So items like infrastructure management, data center virtualization, the security around it, truly an end-to-end supply chain, an end-to-end product portfolio for our very diverse customers. We've grown that organically as well as inorganically by acquisitions. There's been quite a few, about 17 in the last 3 years. And they really provide that complete end-to-end solution set. So not just the networking or data center hardware, but also the virtualization, the software to protect all that data, to manage your data center. And many of those acquisitions have an impact on our supply chain because they are consistent of hardware products like an EqualLogic, a SonicWall, Alienware, the first one we did in 2006. And that is the team that I work in the global fulfillment and logistics, managing the procurement. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk here today. I want to talk to you a little bit about the innovation in our supply chain. What we have done to react to the changes in our environment, and also what we are doing proactively to address that and the challenges that are before us. So a few, I guess, points here. I see that it is actually very difficult to see these numbers on a big screen from a distance, especially for the standing room there in the back. So I'll just give you the highlights. We ship around 110 million boxes per year, roughly 1.5 billion pounds of cargo. Relevant for Atlanta is the fact that we ship about 25,000 main decks into the different locations in the world originating from Asia, and a significant portion of that arrives here in Atlanta. On the ocean side, there's about 22,000 40-foot containers that is moved in the Dell network. That global environment is changing, has changed a lot, and we need to, as a fulfillment supply chain and fulfillment organization, need to innovate, because there are new markets that are growing that we need to focus on, specifically China, Brazil, India, and those have an infrastructure that is developing, that's not mature yet. So you need a different supply chain, a different fulfillment model for those emerging markets, and you have a different competitive environment as well. Then, as I spoke a little earlier about those integrated solutions, the end-to-end data center solutions, it's no longer just delivering a package to an end consumer, but it is the coordination of hardware, software, and a technician. You cannot just deliver products and not worry about when it arrives. It has to be very, very specific, because there's a technician waiting there. There's other equipment sometimes, especially when you talk about a large data center. So we had to develop a new supply chain around that. And then as our markets have changed, we kind of started with e-commerce. The Dell.com website started there. And we have actually moved more into retail, you see Dell computers now at Best Buy and Walmart. So we had to change how to deliver products to those entities. And the configuration that we were built on, which was how we started, with having a factory in the US, where any kind of configuration that you could dream of, that you could order, was assembled there and then shipped to the customer. Now we have retail, which is a supply chain that requires maybe 10 or 20,000 of the same product. You still want to offer configurability. If a large enterprise wants something specific, they want a specific video card in your system, you want to be able to have the ability to provide that, while at the same time provide more consistency for the larger retail orders. So those are some key things that we had to innovate around. Some innovations that Dell had done in the past is the direct model, where you ordered from Dell. Dell would assemble the laptop. It started with Michael in his dorm room. You ordered from him. You didn't even have to pick up the phone. You just walked around the dorm. Then it started with Dell.com. Kind of an e-commerce type innovation. And we had to evolve from there and develop a segmented supply chain. So to go from there, we have to continue to innovate, and we have identified 3 opportunity areas to do that. In the strategic sourcing, so the way you procure your logistics and fulfillment services, as well as the operational optimization and IT, and that feeds back onto itself. When you implement a new IT system, it allows you different sourcing approaches. So I'll talk to you briefly about all 3 of them. The different sourcing approaches that we are taking are really directed based on the segment that we see that commodity segment falls. As an example, we have travel there in the bottom left corner, where you collaboratively invest and drive new solutions that provide, once again, innovation, but lower cost and higher margin for your provider. But it's not always the applicable sourcing approach. A vested sourcing approach might not be very applicable to an inbound air and ocean, as an example. So we have a different segmented sourcing approach for inbound air and ocean. It is not as a sticky relationship. If there is a more market advantage solution out there, it might make sense to drive the right value to our customers to make a transition there and approach that sourcing a little more transactional and not as much strategic longer term. So to talk to you a little bit more about that vested, something that we have done in close collaboration with Kate Wittesek is on our reverse supply chain. The innovation step we took there was to approach the sourcing with regards to our reverse supply chain from a vested approach. And to be really vested, it doesn't make sense if you just reduce your cost to Dell and only get innovation or improved service. You also need to improve the margins to the provider. So it basically is a balance between reducing cost, innovation and improved service, and also improved margins to your provider. When that is in balance, then you truly have a vested outsourcing relationship. And that has been very successful for us in our reverse logistics supply chain, where product is shipped back, it has to be refurbished, and then you have to find a channel to fulfill from and get value back. We've seen a 50% reduction in scrap and significantly increased return on our investment, return on our assets. On the continuous optimization from a supply chain perspective, what we focus on is a framework that has 4 elements that continuously loop. So we assess what's going on in our supply chain. We look at partners. Some of you might be here to generate new ideas. We look at industry experts like Dr. Levi, Kate Vitasek, and other companies around us, and see how they manage supply chain. We design a new supply chain, enable, implement it, stabilize it, and continuously loop. So learn from others to make sure that we don't get stuck in a one model. We need to differentiate. We're currently focused on applying that to three key areas. Mature markets, like you have in the US, where you really need to optimize your network. Emerging countries, like China. It's a very different fulfillment model in China. We're very focused on the smaller cities, tier 3, 4, 5. The small cities, still about 5 million or so people that could live there, so not exactly small, but there you have to sell very differently. You need to have store fronts. You need to be in the malls where customers walk in and buy a computer, and it's a different fulfillment model you need for that. So that is what we. That is the key things we're working on. And on the third point was innovation around our IT. In the global fulfillment and logistics organization globally, we had about 54 systems that we use in our supply chain. Not really talking to each other, it just grew up that way. And that really prevented us, also from a sourcing perspective, if you want to make a change and implement a new solution, you have to work through that. So what the step we have taken, and we're currently in process of, is selecting Oracle. One of the things we are implementing now is the Oracle Transportation Management. So with that, you have a much more integrated end-to-end supply chain solution that then allows us to take different sourcing actions. So by innovating on the sourcing approaches, innovating on our supply chain and continuously optimizing, and the infrastructure that supports it, the IT. Those are the key things that we're focused on to continue to innovate and deliver the products to our customers. Thank you very much. Appreciate your attention, and we'll look forward to any questions that might come up. Thank you.
So we've got about 25 minutes. I've got a bunch of questions, but since we're really kind of short on time, I thought maybe a better use of our time would be if there's any questions from the audience. So any questions for Mark or for Dave or Greg or Anton or Jim, please step up. The mic is here. We've got somebody right here.
Hi, this is for Mark Holyfield. Presumably this new facility in Locust Grove will support Home Depot's e-commerce growth. Can you give me some idea what type of e-commerce growth you are looking at in the next 2-3 years? And also on a separate but related issue, can you see almost using the stores as de facto distribution centers for local deliveries or deliveries that might be driven by e-commerce transactions?
Yeah. Can you hear me? Okay. In terms of e-commerce growth, we just recently hit $1 billion out of our $70 billion in revenue. We don't break out e-commerce as a segment, so we don't talk too much, but it is the fastest growing part of our business. We expect it to continue to grow very quickly over the next several years. In terms of the stores being a fulfillment and delivery basing location, what you might not know is that today all 2,000 stores in the Home Depot currently are fulfillment and delivery locations. But we don't have the capability right now to take orders online and drop them to the store. That's a capability that we're working on and will deliver within the next 12 months or so. We do see stores as a significant opportunity for us in terms of fulfillment and delivery, and we're continuing to build on our capabilities there. The first thing that we implemented a while back was buy online, return in store. So if you buy something from HomeDepot.com, it can be one of the 500,000 SKUs that we have on HomeDepot.com outside of the 35,000 SKUs in our store assortment. and it's simple and easy to return that to your local store. You can get your credit right away, and you don't have to worry about boxing up the product and getting it back to the pure play online retailer. So return in store, we have pickup in store, so the stores fulfill orders that are taken online. We pick, pack, and ready those orders for customer pickup today in all stores. Just this week, we implemented buy online, ship to store. What that means is you can get any of the 500,000 SKUs that are out there on our website delivered to your local store. And generally that's a much lower cost than having it delivered to the home. Customers prefer that option, particularly for large products and things like that. Some customers don't like, UPS boxes on the doorstep, that kind of thing. So ship to store is an incredibly popular offering. It's just now rolled out to all stores. We are implementing, as I mentioned, buy online, deliver from store. And we'll be able to do that. We do see that certain of our products, the store is going to be the place to deliver from. We sell a 60-pound bag of concrete for about $2.64. That's a high-weight, low-value relationship. The most efficient place in the world to get 8 bags of 60-pound concrete is going to be in the store, whether you pick it up yourself or have it delivered from the store.
Answer your question.
Yes, I was interested the extent to which enterprise risk management, supply chain, its daughter, supply chain risk management, is becoming a factor in your business model, and what that means then downstream to your suppliers of services or products.
Is that question really specific to anybody or just?
Really, I would think anyone on the panel might have to deal with that kind of issue.
Supply chain risk, guys?
Well, frankly, in our case, everything that we receive, we scan. Everything that gets loaded into a truck is scanned. At delivery, it's scanned. If you look at our shrink as a percent to compare it, we're well below what the national average is for retail shrink. And it's because we go that extra mile, even to the fact that when we have 3PLs that assist us in delivering to our stores in Dallas, Kansas City, and in Columbus, Ohio, they are required to, when our truck arrives, to scan it to verify that what we said we gave them, they got, and then they're required at delivery to scan it, and we get that data sent back to us so that we can net everything out. It's very important to us, and it has a direct impact on our profitability.
Just to interject regarding, to kind of follow up with Mark, what we see today, we do a lot of research in this particular area in terms of the lines blurring between retail or e-retailing, right, and brick and mortar. Today, we do a lot of work with one of the largest, or the largest retailer in the world called Walmart. This is a fact. 50% of their product today that is bought online is actually picked up from store. But what's an interesting fact is, and it'd be interesting to know this from Mark, is that 80% of the time that actual shopper buys online and picks up from store, they add something additional to that shopping cart. So really what buy online, pick up from store does, quite frankly, is, at least in my humble opinion, is that really is a door opener, right? It's a free door opener. I don't have to promote it. I mean, I've already got a customer who's buying from me. I don't have to run an advertisement. I don't have to run a circular. I don't have to run some kind of promotion on Thursday or Sunday's paper. They're coming into my store to buy. Now the question is, now that I've got you, how do I actually execute and sell more to you? So I don't know, Mark, if you guys have got any statistics on adding what your shopping cart increase is.
Yeah, it's early days. It's early days for us on the pickup in store and the ship to store, but we do find an excellent penetration of attachment. Our average ticket at the Home Depot is typically something less than $50, low 40, somewhere in there. Our average ticket for pickup and ship to store orders are higher.
Yeah. And I think the other key point about the whole omni-channel, about buying online, picking up from store, and shipping from store, is that if I've got Home Depot store, which is, what, 70, 80,000, 100,000 square foot store, and I've got maybe 1,000 to 2,000 man hours of payroll per week running in that store is much different than if I'm a Dollar General and I've got a whopping 80 hours of man hours in the store. So again, I think the key focus on that is process, people, and technology, and understanding what kind of retailer you really are. Any other questions?
I've got one for Jim and one for Greg. Greg, you had a growth chart showing that Mexico was in the past maturity and in the kind of closing area. With the resurgence of manufacturing coming into Mexico from China, do you think that will move Mexico back into a higher percentage of purchasing on retail?
Yeah, I do. I don't know if this is on, but I do. Between the nearshoring and the ability to go ahead and use Mexico as a close sourcing opportunity area, I think we'll see some of that. And we as a carrier do a lot of inland transportation cross-border, whether that's parts coming in, manufactured product coming out of Mexico. So we're seeing some of that trend. I think, relative to that chart, we're seeing that some of the presence in terms of brands, I think, is maybe more sophisticated. But in terms of manufacturing, no, certainly there's opportunity.
Okay, great. And then for Jim, how will the hours of service and the new trucking realities affect your, quote, Savannah reaches more people than New Jersey assumption?
Well, obviously with Savannah being closer to our customers, the truckers obviously spend less time making deliveries. So it shouldn't really affect us, and the location in Savannah should put us in a good position to accommodate that change.
Any other questions? If not, I've got a few for the panel. We got one back here.
It's for Mark. What drove the decision to open up a fulfillment center for your e-commerce versus doing it out of your rapid deployment? And do you think that you'll duplicate product, inventory product? You've got a widget over here, and you have to have a widget over here. How do you address that?
Yep. The rapid deployment centers are just that. They're flow-through distribution centers where product comes in and leaves typically within 24 hours. So the product there is flowing through. They're not traditional stock and pick distribution centers. So we don't have every product in there at any given time that we can fulfill a customer offering. So that's the first point on that. The second is, as I mentioned, the direct fulfillment DCs will hold about 100,000 SKUs. That's about 65,000 more than is in the typical Home Depot store. So that'll be an assortment beyond what's in the store and beyond what gets distributed to the store. And that brings a greater variety of products to our customers. So we're pleased to be able to offer that to our customers. If you think about the Home Depot store, the RDCs generate a little less than a truckload a day for every store. And we have other distribution centers that are also generating truckloads per store per day. The factory that produces a truckload of product for a Home Depot store are rapid deployment centers. And the factory that produces a 1, 2, maybe 3 box order for our customer is a pretty different factory, and therefore we wanted to have the capabilities custom to those capabilities. The direct fulfillment DCs will allow us to concentrate inventory in very limited pools, despite the fact that it's 100,000 SKUs, and we think we can get to our turns targets with a small number of rapid deployments, of direct fulfillment DCs that can deliver direct to customer.
Other questions?
You guys mentioned a lot about customer service or the customer experience. From a distribution standpoint, what metrics are you looking at to make sure that you're, one, hitting those numbers, and then two, what's the correlation between that and an uptick in sales?
Yeah, the kind of metrics we measure are missing, wrong, and damaged. So did the product arrive intact, or were there any items missing? Was it wrong? Was it not the right item? Of course, on-time performance. So we know what the delivery date is for the customer, and did we meet that? And then, of course, it's survey results as well. Is how likely are you as a customer to recommend Dell to your friends and colleagues? So it's surveys, but it is also on-time performance and missing, wrong, and damage. Does that answer your question?
That's one part.
Okay. And what was the other part? Sorry.
No, that was, and then. So when you are meeting those metrics,
yeah.
Then what do you see from that customer from an increase in sales? Do you see when you're meeting them, or if you're exceeding them, then that customer actually the customer where you exceed the metric, they order more versus the one where you meet, orders in the middle, and the one where you miss, they never come back again?
Yeah, that's definitely the case. We probably don't have exact numbers on that, but if you miss commitments to a customer, he or she will definitely not return. He or she will also not ensure that friends will come back. So it's very important to take care of that customer, and especially when you talk about desktop, notebooks, those kind of fulfillment models. If you don't deliver a notebook or desktop in time, you've kind of really missed a big opportunity, because it's going to be a while before they order another one. And on the enterprise side, larger customers, or even small and medium and businesses, when you start with your first deliveries and you do not do well, the rest of the deployment might be at risk. You will not see follow-up business. So it's hard to give exact numbers on that, but it is definitely very significant. So we have to be successful every time.
For Mark, how many of these fulfillment centers will you open, and what's the timeline? Is it just the one, or are there several? I missed the slide.
Yep. We're opening the Locust Grove, Georgia distribution center in Q1 of 2014. We're also building in Paris, California, in Southern California, and that will open in the second half of 2014.
Hi, this question is for the panel overall. I have a question in two parts. The first one is, I'm noticing a common theme here where all of you are really looking at distribution network optimization. And I'm wondering, with regard to that, what's kind of the length of process that each of you have taken with regard to a lot of the strategic decision making and execution in this part? And then the second question I have is then, what are the skill sets that you're typically looking for from professionals in terms of doing this kind of work for you?
I can start if you guys don't mind. Typical supply chain, first and foremost, I think in terms of supply chain strategy, it should be ongoing, right? It should be basically a core competency within your organization. I mean, you should be looking at a supply chain strategy on an ongoing basis and doing a refresh. Be interesting to see what the panel says, but at least doing a refresh every year. Again, it's like changing your oil, right? You don't go 20,000 miles and then decide to change your oil. You're basically changing your oil every 3,000 miles or per the actual manufacturer warranty. So I think the key part is it should be part of your core competency. You should be doing a refresh on at least an annual basis or looking at it. The second part, in terms of resources that are out there, most supply chain, what I call practitioners, have got really two components. I actually would call it really three. The first component, typically, they're going to be an industrial engineer, right, that has got a good statistical background. Second, they're going to have an OR background in terms of operations research, either bachelor or master's in OR. And then last but not least is that I kind of coined this term. I call it more of a supply chain technologist. And what I mean by that is I don't necessarily mean that you need to be a bits and bytes and you need to write in C++ or know what XML stands and how to write HTML screens. But the reality is you need to have some level of understanding of supply chain technology in terms of warehouse management, order management, labor management, demand planning, and forecasting. So at least you understand when you're designing a supply chain what the enabling technology can do for you. Today, right or wrong, in complex supply chains, there's always some level of technology component. So therefore, understanding, quite frankly, how to run an SQL statement, right? How to pull data out of an overall application. I think those are what we see, but open up the panel in terms of your guys' groups. I know Dell's got a big supply chain group. I know Home Depot does. in terms of, and a matter of fact, James just came off a supply chain network project, so maybe James, you can answer the question.
Sure. You're exactly right, Jim. We performed one in the beginning of 2012 and made the changes in 2012. We've since, of course, did it again to see if it still makes sense, which it did. Definitely every year, if not sooner, depending on what opportunities come your way. I mean, things could change at any time, whether it be in a certain quarter or a certain half year that you need to relook at it at that time. To talk more about your skill set, no matter what technology, which obviously is a very important piece, Excel skills are, immensely useful in any data application using. Most technologies you download to an Excel and then you start, manipulating the data however you want. And then, of course, there's financial analysis that has to get involved in that, network optimization. On a macro level, it's really three parts. You have the inbound transportation cost, you have the actual warehousing cost, and then you have your outbound transportation cost. Without getting into the nitty-gritty of labor costs and real estate and stuff like that, but pretty much that's the way you go about your network study.
Yeah, and I would interject. I think what's missing, unfortunately, from a networking modeling tools, right? There are a number of network modeling tools that are out there, and you can Google them. We can talk to you about them afterwards. The thing that's somewhat disappointing, though, is that most network modeling tools are static in nature, not dynamic. So when you make a change to your network, what is the impact of how inventory flows through the actual networking tool? The challenge is that if you really understand it at a static level, most network modeling tools aggregate data at big chunks. And really, when you start flowing product, you really need to start flowing product at the SKU local level. So again, the optimization engine, and I would going more from a linear optimization engine that is doing MIPS versus really simulation. You start moving now from really optimization, which is least cost modeling, to really simulation as to how you're going to model and flow inventory through your supply chain. Because if you could go from a single DC network to a multi-echelon network, it's got significant differences on inventory. And I think that's the big component that's missing today in supply chain network strategy projects, is that inventory is not something that's taken into consideration. And part of that, especially in retail, sorry for getting my soapbox, part of this is because typically most supply chain professionals don't own inventory, right? They own the physical aspect of the inventory, but they don't actually own the actual financial aspect of the inventory. So, Mark may say, let's go do a distribution network project. Well, who owns the inventory, right? He may own the physical aspect of it, but he's not the one buying and planning inventory, right? He's not the one buying and planning and doing the allocation. So, long-winded answer. Hopefully that helps.
Yeah, I'm in to many of the things just said. And the real-world example of that, when we began the supply chain transformation at the Home Depot about 6 years ago, one of the first things we did was we wanted to do a distribution network model, but knowing that this was going to be a multi-year transformation, instead of getting a consulting firm or someone to do that, we actually bought the tool and staffed a small team to do distribution network modeling. And the real-world example to how things change, the first time we ran the model, we thought we needed 27 RDCs. Lots of reasons. The data wasn't as good as we hoped it would be. But we continued to run the model as we opened each DC along the way. Each time we learned more about our business, and lo and behold, we've ended up at 18 handling our whole business. We continue to use that network modeling to allow us to do it, to optimize our network, and we kind of rerun it every time our network makes a significant change. We want to understand what that's done to it.
We're out of time, but I mean, we'll take questions. I mean, we had a hard stop at, I think, 11:45, but more questions. We got to go? Oh, we got to go, Paige? Oh, darn. Okay, well, good. Thank you. I want to thank Paige and his organization, and again, I want to thank the panel, but more importantly, thank you guys.
Thank you all for coming. We're getting ready to get set up for lunch. Spend a few minutes visiting the sponsors upstairs. And again, one more round of applause for our great panel for today. We'll see you upstairs around noon. to have some lunch with our next group. Thank you very much.